It's time to take 10 minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.
Welcome to our discussion of Pesach, getting closer. If we think of the holiday of Pesach, why do we call it Pesach? Pesach because the Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb, was the essence, was the centerpiece, was the main course of the Seder for Jews for hundreds and thousands of years. So much is the Korban Pesach, the bringing of the Paschal Lamb, a centerpiece that if a person failed to bring Korban Pesach, you'd be cut off from your people. It's like eating on Yom Kippur. If we fail to bring a Korban Pesach, the Korban Pesach must be brought. It's the yearly re-upping with the covenant with God to show that not just a person had a bris when he's 8 days old, but he re-ups that bris every year. Show I'm in. I want to be part of the bris of the covenant of God and the Jewish people every single year. If we ask ourselves, what is a korban? This is really the inaugural korban, the inaugural sacrifice of the Jewish people. Perhaps a conversionary korban. Maybe it's the sacrifice that helped the Jews convert. There is a notion that a convert should bring a korban, a sacrifice. Today we don't require it because there is no Beis HaMikdash, but theoretically there is a korban hager, there's a korban sacrifice for the initiation in the Jewish people. So every year we reinitiate ourselves. But what is a korban? So the Ramban says, I'll tell you what it is. Look at Bilam. I know Bilam is a wicked man, but still, he knew what he was doing. He's some sort of prophet. He knew how to conjure up God in a prophecy, and he brought korbanos. When he wanted to conjure up God, when he wanted to have a vision of God, a prophecy from God, he brought many korbanos. As the rabbis say, he brought, I think, 42 korbanos, something like that. So when you want to get close with God, you want to have a Gilui Shechina, the divine revelation, you bring a sacrifice. And we mentioned in other years that the Haggadah mentions in 2 places that there was a Gilui Shechina with the Exodus from Egypt. There was a divine revelation. We say Mora Gadol, that we went out with a great wonder. What was the great wonder? The Gilui Shechina, the fact that when we went out of Egypt, we could see God. There was a vision of God. God passed over this house. He smote the Egyptians in the other house. Apparently, God is choosing us. God is in history. Gilui Shechina doesn't have to be like, you see a vision of God. There's no vision. Gilui Shechina means to see God right there in history. Exactly what happened, that God saved the Jews. The Egyptians lost their firstborn, splitting the sea. The Jews went through the dry land. The Egyptians drowned. That was a clear revelation of God. And we also say in the Haggadah that we didn't have enough time to let the dough rise until God revealed himself to us and redeemed us. When did God reveal to us? At midnight. What did the Jews eat by midnight? The Korban Pesach, the Paschal Lamb. So the Seder, the moment of the Exodus, is a moment of Gilui Shechina, of divine revelation. God revealed himself to be present in history. We know that theoretically we should all be commanded to remember the Genesis, remember creation from the very beginning. But no, the Ten Commandments says, remember that I am the God who took you out of Egypt. That's what we should remember. We don't have a commandment to remember creation every day. Shabbos remembers that to some degree. But more importantly, we always talk about remembering Exodus from Egypt. Because why? Because you're right, theoretically, we should recognize divine presence in creation, but that's too far away. We can't, the dinosaurs, we can't fathom that long ago. But it's Yetzias Mitzrayim, the Exodus from Egypt, that was something our ancestors experienced personally. And they saw the Gilui Shechina. It was a revelation of God's presence in this world, just like the creation of the world itself. Rabbi Soloveitchik says that the Seder night, we have a rendezvous with God. We have a date. We have a meeting with God. That's what a korban is. Korban means to get close. We just read the Parsha of Vayikra. We're in the book of Vayikra now. Well, korban comes from the word karev, getting close. A sacrifice is a time to get close with God. In Egypt, the Jews had a rendezvous with God. God says, I'll tell you what, You bring that sacrifice, and I will reveal myself that night. We find the same thing with Hevel. In the beginning of creation, you had Cain and Hevel, and Vayish Hashem el Hevel, God turned to Cain, to Hevel, and to his offering, his gift, his tribute. That what? God turned to it. God revealed himself to him. Or by Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, when they brought it, the Jewish people as a whole brought a sacrifice, the first big sacrifice in the Mishkan, new tabernacle, brand new tabernacle, and Hashem, there was a fire that came from heaven to eat the sacrifice, and the people said, "Wow!" The people sang a song, Vayaronu. They sang, they shouted out, because when you have a sacrifice, it's the moment of revelation. It's a moment of that rendezvous with God and the Jewish people, God and the person who brings the sacrifice. Pesach, think of it as, it's a night together with your family, talk about God, redeeming us from Egypt, and what people might view as history. But actually, there's much more to it than that. As Rabbi Soloveitchik said, it's a rendezvous with God. It's a date we have with God every year to renew the covenant, to remember that God revealed himself in history. As we ponder that, as we think about God's hand in history and in our own lives, we hopefully will have a Gilui Shechina, the revelation of God, seeing the uncovering, the unmasking of God in the world around us. When we have that, then we truly had a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, then we truly had a real Pesach, a real Seder, where it wasn't just a storytelling, it wasn't just history, it wasn't just a family gathering, it wasn't just good food. It's all that, plus a Gilui Shechina, a remembrance that God is in history. It's in our history, the modern state of Israel. It's in our history, everything that's going on today, good, bad, and indifferent. He's there. And when we see that hand of God in history, when we unmask God in history, then there's that Gilui Shechina, Pesach, that opportunity to unmask the presence of God in history and then ultimately in our lives as well. We thank you for joining us here at the Baron Hirsch Congregation. We thank Jason Lefkowitz, our producer. Thank you for joining us, and we wish everyone Chag Kosher v'Sameach, wonderful, happy, healthy, and kosher Pesach, Passover holiday. Chag Kosher v'Sameach.
This has been 10 Minutes for Torah with Rabbi Joel Finkelstein.